We are only on episode number 2. Remind me, why are we talking about something as boring as lactate testing?
Lactate testing is important to define the current fitness level for the athlete and to be able to create personal and accurate training program based on the current fitness.
Lactate testing has been in the athlete's toolkit for decades, and usually for age groupers it is associated with maximal lab tests. Those are usually done to absolute exhaustion, and it's normal for the athlete after that kind of test to be most interested in the maximal values, be it VO2 max, maximum power or top speed. This is a different kind of setup. Can you explain?
Yes, that is true that lab testing is normally used to define athletes' fitness level, and we are also doing that with Heini annually to get more accurate measurements. But this time the testing was, we did only lactate profile testing in a bit more closer to Heini's normal training environment.
So this kind of testing is done to make sure that the training plan is working.
That is true, and this type of testing is also easy to do more frequently compared to the lab testing.
How did you do the testing?
So this was combined testing, so we included bike and running, and it was a progressive ramp test for both sports, where we increased the power or speed after every 3 minutes.
How big were the increments in power and speed?
So in bike, every 3 minutes we increased power by 25 watts, and that is what we have been usually using for Heini. And then for running, we increased the speed by 1 kilometer per hour after every 3 minutes.
At the beginning of this video I mentioned maximal tests. These weren't like that.
No, because this was combined testing including bike and running. The bike test was done sub-maximal, and running was also same type. And there was 10-minute recovery spinning between the bike and run test.
What kind of information did you get from this session?
So the main idea was to get current lactate profile and compare that to the previous testing.
What were the differences between these tests?
So once doing the comparison to previous lactate profile, we saw quite nice improvement on basic endurance level, which was exactly our target during November and December training.
It's great to hear that the training is working. Can you explain what this actually means in practice?
So as we can see from the graph, the both heart rate and lactate profiles has come down on the basic endurance level.
So that's really the point that you were looking for. You train a lot in the lower intensity levels, and that is where you see the change.
Exactly. November and December was basic endurance.
So what do you do with this information?
So now when we have this lactate profile from the testing, we can now define the lactate thresholds from the profile and then create the coming training program based on those thresholds.
I think this is a good point to stop for a moment and talk about the thresholds. After all, numbers are always interesting. I have to preface this with the notion that depending where you live or who you listen to, these definitions might be a bit different. Could you explain these a little bit more?
It is true that there is many definitions for these things and you can get easily confused. For the sake of clarity, let's use terms lower as aerobic threshold and higher as anaerobic threshold. Lower threshold is defined in the point where lactates start to rise first time from the baseline. The second steeper rise point defines the higher threshold. The bike test results indicated improvement for both thresholds, even though we did not include any longer higher threshold workouts in the last 2-month training program, which indicates how effective training under lower threshold is. Lower threshold was now defined to 158 watts with heart rate 126 and higher threshold to 206 watts with 157 heart rate. So there was around 10 watts improvement for the both thresholds. For the run, lower threshold was defined to a bit under 5 minutes per kilometer pace with 142 heart rate and higher one bit under 4 minutes per kilometer pace with 170 heart rate. The thresholds for the run remained about on the same level as in the previous test, which was expected as pace training during November-December was mostly done by bike and cross-country skiing. This was still good result as before previous testing, Heini had just completed a bit harder running block. So running is in good shape now when we are just starting to add some higher efforts to run workouts.
Could you explain how do you use these two thresholds when designing actual workouts?
Defined thresholds will be further used to specify training zones. All the recovery and most of the base training workouts will be done below first threshold. As an example, during November-December, almost 85% of all training was done below lower threshold. This is important to further improve base fitness and recover properly from higher effort training. In the ongoing training block, we have included also higher threshold level workouts to add some stress to higher aerobic metabolism system. This will increase performance for half Ironman type of races and gives us more room to further improve lower threshold. Workouts on this level will work also as a sport-specific strength workouts and improve economy for lower efforts. Higher threshold is also important divider between aerobic and anaerobic systems. As endurance athletes,
We want to tune our aerobic engine as strong as possible and try to avoid firing anaerobic system too much. Here lactate profiling is good tool to do follow-up.
In the next episode, we will see an example of Heini's training week, and you will explain how this information from this test is used in that program.
Yes, that is true. Until next episode.